Welcome to the MEND, a podcast to learn about services and support for victims and survivors of crime, sponsored through the Center for Crime Victim Services here in Vermont. I am Anna Nasset, and I am the host of this bi-monthly podcast and show. And today on the show, we have Taylor Fontaine, a survivor and brave voice here in our state, to talk about how she began telling her story. Thank you so much for being here, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you.
So as you know, the show was created to take a deeper look at services, organizations, concepts for victims and survivors of crime. We want to acknowledge our healing process and provide resources not only in our state of Vermont, but throughout the country that could benefit victims of crime as they begin to mend. And today we are going to be looking at some of those, including how we tell our stories. I always want to begin with a trigger warning. Our goal is to create a safe place to discuss topics of healing. But with that in mind, we may occasionally hear a story that is related to sensitive subject matter, crime, discuss our mental health, or have other sensitive matter. We urge you to listen at your own discretion. As I said, today on the show, we have a return guest, one of my first return guests, Taylor Fontaine. She was born and raised in Vermont and is an alum of Champlain College, where she graduated with a bachelor's in early childhood and elementary education. Formerly a teacher, she now has found a passion in social work. She currently works with families and is involved with Department of Children and Families through a variety of services offered with the programs. She works to support, educate, and empower families in building a safety within their families. To listen to her full story, please take a listen to Season 3, Episode 4 of The MEND to learn more about her. So Taylor, welcome so much. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's always fun to get to connect with you.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm thrilled to have you back. How have you been in this last year since you were last on the show? And what work have you been doing to elevate your voice and other survivors' voices?
I've been good. I've been very, very busy doing a lot of different things, but, busy in the best way. I've been working very closely with the center on different projects that I don't think I'm able to quite share just yet, but it is to, keep all victims and survivor voices at the forefront. And I'm pretty excited about the projects that we've been working on and excited for them to eventually come to life.
I'm excited to collaborate with you on one of the secret projects.
Me too.
Gosh, we have to be for now, but
yeah,
just so mysterious. I love it. But I'm so glad that you're really engaging with the center and doing work. And you and I had an ability to collaborate this spring with the Vermont Victims Assistance Academy. And it's just always a pleasure to see how you have transformed the experience that you went through as a child into such a voice of change within our state, and I'm say within our country too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So today we wanted to chat about that. It is, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It is Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. We have National Crime Victims' Rights Week coming up at the end of this month. And a large part of this month is a lot about storytelling. So can you tell our listeners what first motivated you or how you felt called to share your story?
Yeah. I really don't know what totally motivated me, because I was I wouldn't say pushed into it, but encouraged to share it after I wrote about it in my paper in a child psychology class. It was all discussing about how your childhood was, how it shaped you into who you are. And I went back and forth with, should I write about this? Should I not? And then I was like, yeah, I need to. This is really what did make a huge impact, and I need to share it. And once I wrote it, my professor was like, I really want you to share this. I think it's important, as long as you're comfortable with it. And I was like, all right, let's do it. I mean, I went back and forth, do I want to do this? My first year of college. I don't really want to be known as the girl that was assaulted at a sleepover anymore. I was ready for that fresh start, but then something in my gut really told me, you need to share that childhood isn't all rainbows and butterflies for everyone. And, traumatic things do happen to people in their childhood, and it does affect them for the rest of their lives. So I went with that gut feeling that was it's time to share this and, get it out there. And I'm glad I did, because it really sparked my voice. That one little push from my professor, I'm, really grateful for. So yeah, I was really glad I did it.
Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
like, I know for me, kind of similar, like I got a little push when I attended the Vermont Victims Assistance Academy back in 2017, 2018, and had
Yeah.
never thought about telling my story, and
Hmm.
was sitting in with the former educational coordinator, Andrea Van Loo, and she's like, why did you want to move into victim service work? Like, and I was like, well, there's this little thing that nobody knows about. And she asked me if I
Yeah.
would consider speaking on a panel. And I was like, no, I don't speak, but now I do. And we've
That
never
one
shut
push.
up.
Yeah, it's so true. Yes, you just need that one push, and it's something to be grateful for.
Yeah. Like one of the things I found that I just resonated with you, you said, like, I didn't want to be the girl who was assaulted as a child at a sleepover anymore. And,
Hmm.
that's something I kind of wrestle with too, is like, so often people are like, oh, you're Anna the stalking speaker, or you're Anna the stalking survivor. And
Hmm.
do you feel like you're still identified with that? Because I know for myself, yes, this is my work, this is what I do professionally, but I feel like I'm so much more than that. And I feel
Hmm.
like through doing this work, I'm just such a different person, and
Hmm.
that's not what identifies me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does make sense. I feel like it was something that I was identified as and with for a really long time, but as I, continued to use my voice and grow, I was realizing like that's really a small part of me, even though it was such a big thing that happened. And it did shape me into a lot of who I am, but I
Mhm.
don't really, I mean, yes, identify as a survivor, but also like I am so much more, just like you said. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely, you go through the process of healing and um letting go and, just grieving it and moving forward.
And then using it to create change and help others
Yeah.
understand these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare to tell your story, or what work have you done in preparing? Like, you wrote this paper, and then people
Mhm.
started to ask you to speak and things of that nature. So how have you prepared yourself for stepping into those public spaces?
Yeah. Like I wrote a paper the first time. It helps me to like write it down, kind of a speech, tailor it to the different audiences I'm speaking to, like if it's to create change for a law or if it's just to bring awareness, kind of um share it in different ways that I know will speak to the audience that I'm speaking to. And just practicing it, then make changes to it, and then also just make sure I have a plan of self-care, because I know as soon as it's so empowering to share it, but it's also this emotional release afterwards, and just making sure that I have that plan for myself afterwards is really what gets me through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is like, in the way you were speaking about it, like, you write about it, you practice it, you edit it, you cater it to each person, to each group.
Mhm.
Like, it's a job, right? It's a job to
Yep.
go in and do that work. And yes, the
Yeah.
fallout, I know for myself, like I go everywhere from needing to immediately crawl into bed and go to sleep to wanting to like see my friends and celebrate. Like, it's really
Mhm.
anywhere in between, and I allow for that.
Yep. Yeah. You got to feel it and listen to your body for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And identify that to, I think, to the people that are bringing you in as well is important. Something
Yeah.
I found is being able to say, like, you're like, oh, do you want to do dinner afterwards? I'm like, I don't know if I will. Maybe,
Yeah.
but maybe not.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Stay tuned.
I'm learning to get better at that very slowly, but just having a conversation about that earlier today. Um,
Yeah.
so for right now, what venues and spaces have you shared your story in, and how have you felt like it's been received?
Yeah. I I've shared it a lot of different places. I've shared it like in trainings for police officers and victim advocates. I shared it with other survivors, my college classroom. I shared it in legislature, on the news, a lot of different places and a lot of different venues. And I would say for the most part, it has been received very well and has helped spark change or just bring awareness. But I also recognize that sometimes people can, the impact of my story is positive or negative on some people. And that, that's out of my control when I share it on that public level. I really just tell myself how people feel about what I've shared is more about them and not me, because this is my truth. And
Mhm.
sometimes it does get to me, but I also just remember, this is my truth. This is what happened to me. And they'll take it however they feel they need to take it.
Absolutely. I love it. It's about them. It's not about
Yep.
us.
Exactly.
I mean, I know that something I thought a lot about as I, started to go out and speak was really had to sit and think like, okay, what can the response be to this? Like, am I opening myself up to more potential harm by going
Mm-hmm.
out and speaking, especially on a subject like stalking? And had to really go deep with that before I decided to move into this more outspoken place. And in the end,
Yep.
decided that one, the more who know, the safer I am, and
Mm-hmm.
also that the good my story could do outweighed the negative I might take in. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. So when I
Yep.
get those crappy
100%.
emails every now and then from some creep or whatever, they just go into a file that's labeled creepers. And where they stay in case if we ever need that. And
Yep.
I mean, I think as weird as it is to say, having been stalked for over a decade, I know how to like keep everything. And so I just have done that. And
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
feel like the few negative comments I've gotten over the years, the good has so much more outweighed that.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So when preparing your story, like you said, you cater it to each audience, whoever you're with. Um, but what elements of each story, or each time you tell your story, do you find to be the most impactful? And also, what details should be told and should be left out?
Yeah. I think uh, this is like a really tough question for me. I think as I've shared my story, I've recognized that you don't need to put all the details of what happened that night or what led up to it, um, in your speech or your story or sharing it. Simply just saying like I was drugged and sexually assaulted at a sleepover is like enough to catch people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just I recognize that focusing on, the impact and not all the details of the event, really catch people's eyes and just being like, this is what happened, this is how it affected me, and this is why I'm asking for change. It's three simple things that I just remember each time. Um, yeah, it definitely turns people's heads and makes them really listen, because if you add all those details in there, people are gonna either be really invested in it, or they're gonna kind of turn off their hearing to it and not hear the part that you're really wanting them to hear, which is the part of bringing awareness and asking for change.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think
Mhm.
that's so true. Like at first I know I was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you every single detail. I was like, well, no, that's not the point. Like,
Mhm.
yes, this was done to me, but I don't necessarily want to give him any more space. What
Yep.
I do want to talk about is the incredible people who have helped me along the way, how this has, how you can do that as well within your agency or your department, all of those things that
Mhm.
create the change. And then
Mhm.
also, I think like we live in an age where people become so voyeuristic over the gorier details and the more
Yep.
salacious or sexual things. And so I just feel like that takes away from the learning. And it sounds like you feel the same way.
Yeah. That, and I recognize that as you're continuing to heal, sometimes you remember more things that you didn't remember in the past. And then sometimes when you're remembering more things and share those things, people start, get second guessing you, even though you're recognizing this is my truth. But
Mhm.
um, just sharing as blunt but as little as possible really does go a far way.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up a great point. Like, that's something I now try and say if I'm doing like my case study. I say, like, look, I may have told this, done this study, done this training a gajillion times, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still my story. And I still am the victim and survivor of it. So I
Mm-hmm.
may get things out of order occasionally, whatever it might be, because I'm still processing this and always will be.
Yep.
And I'm happy to come out and share this with you. But it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even I just finished writing my book, and it was like, as I had to go back through all the evidence for the first time in a long time, I was like, oh
Yep.
my gosh, I had this in this order and this over here, but it actually
Mm-hmm.
went here. But yeah,
Yeah.
people do kind of go like, well, then what's the truth? It's like, well, no, this is the truth. It's all there.
Yeah. It is the truth. I have similar experiences where, my mom was right in it with me from that night till now, of course. And she remembers a lot more than I do. And sometimes she's like, you don't remember that? And I'm like, trauma does funny things. It blocks a lot of things out. So no, I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's good when we can tell the audience that up front, like, hey,
Mhm.
look, this is what it's like to be in my brain.
Right.
Um, yeah, so within like stuff like that, being able to, speak to the audience and ask that, like, what other support do you need in order to do this work, to go out and talk? Like, we talked a little bit about self-care, but what are some of the other things, like, maybe you wish you'd asked for in the past, or that you're starting to ask for now?
Yeah. I know that if it wasn't for therapy, my friends and family, the partner I have, and a good book to dive into, I definitely wouldn't be able to do what I do. Like surrounding myself with people that support me, surrounding myself with people like you that have kind of a similar vision, um, seeking out different supports with like the center, advocates, definitely finding things that are making you happy and empowered and kind of get you through, and feel safe, have definitely helped support me in this journey of telling my story.
Love it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is really like what we have on that back end. And as you
Mm-hmm.
know, right now I'm traveling, speaking a lot for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it's just, the friends who text me every other day and check in, like, are you okay? How are you
Yep.
feeling? Are you homesick? Have you eaten? Like, have you drank enough water? Like, all of those things are really important,
Yeah.
to being able to keep doing that work. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
such a great thing. So one
Yeah.
of the things that you've done that's really amazing is you've testified for legislators. And
Mm-hmm.
what special considerations should survivors think of and prepare for within working in that environment? Because it is different than going into, a police department or an advocacy
Yep.
center. Like, it's a different world. So what special considerations would you recommend for that?
Yeah. I think I spoke to it a little bit earlier, but it's just being really concise and to the point. And sharing what the law or whatever is happening, how that affects you as a victim or a survivor. Um, and clearly state like what you're asking for, because if you're not clear and concise with it, they're not going to understand like what you're needing or what your ultimate goal is. And I know just being really clear about the change I was asking for, really helped when speaking with them and trying to make change.
Absolutely. Was that something like you would advise, like someone like being able to have a paper they can read off of, or did you kind of just
Mhm.
go stream of conscious?
No, I am have to write it all down and make sure I don't forget really big points that I because I mean, as much as I've done a lot of speaking, I hate public speaking. And sometimes I freeze. So, especially on a big level like that, where you're really trying to make a difference, and even just writing a couple like point words down, or writing it all out, really helped me in like highlighting those words that I really wanted to, push for. And whatever really works for you when you're speaking, but that's definitely something that has helped me. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you ever like look at or watch other speakers like TED Talks or The Moth, for instance, who like, all about storytelling? Do you ever listen to those to kind of get some
Yeah.
tips or whatever?
Yeah, I do that. And I also like listening to a lot of podcasts where like they're trying to make change for different things, and or just trying to recognize like what they do. They probably do something similar where they have something written down and they just talk about it and
Oh, you
get
mean
to
like the
the point.
script I'm reading off of right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, that.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really key, is like everything we do within this work, it is work, first off, and it
Mhm.
is different. So something like this show, like I'll have a script where I can, intro you and have questions, and other times I can go and speak without a script. Sometimes I
Mhm.
do need to have it done. And I think really listening to your intuition with whatever that is, and that your
Mhm.
audience is going to respond whether you need a
Yeah.
piece of paper or not. They're going to be
Yeah.
right there with you.
That's a great point.
Yes. So within storytelling, how has it felt to know that your voice and your story has helped create change, like legal change, but also change within, how police are responding or advocates are? Like, you're creating real tangible change within our state. And how does that feel?
Honestly, I can't even share like what it feels like. Sometimes it still feels pretty unbelievable to even to me. um, but I also recognize like this isn't something a lot of people do. I mean, it is, a lot of people do share their story, but it to other people, they're like, "Wow, you're my hero," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just sharing my truth." Like,
Doing my
uh,
thing.
yep, just doing my thing. And I think where it matters the most to me is when I really feel heard and I do make that change one way or another, even if it's like an impact farther down the road than the immediate one. That's the most empowering part about it all, is like feeling heard, and being able to have the opportunity to make change too.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I was saying the other day in a training, I was like, I'm not looking to be a boulder plopped into a pond. Like, I want
Mhm.
to be a pebble and just kind of create those ripples. And so much of
Yeah.
this work that we're doing by going out and training and educating and creating awareness is work that we'll never see in our lifetime. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Like, that's
Yeah.
totally fine, because our grandmothers did that. And, every, like, that's the way this works, is we're building for a better future.
Yeah.
And yes, it's nice to have the accolade in the moment, but it's really cool when you can see something happen that maybe you spoke about 5 years ago and you're like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really satisfying
That, and
thing.
I really like that analogy of like the pebble, because I think about like you can share your story in front of a huge giant audience, and your story has made at least a difference for at least one person.
Mhm.
Out of that, I don't know, 100 people there. Um, and like that to me is a success. If it can, one out of 100, like that me sharing what has happened, and um that to me just even makes a very little difference, but it
Yeah.
still has made a difference.
And I think so often, like within this work, then it's, we have those conversations where someone comes to us and may share their story for the first time, and they're not looking to
Mhm.
share it in front of 100 people. They may never
Mhm.
need to. That's not everyone's journey, and there's a lot of reasons
Yeah.
behind why we do this work. But even just that audience of one is changing us when they share, and hopefully, you know doing this work has made them feel comfortable enough to come and open up to us. And that's a really
Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
gift.
It is. I know when I shared my story that first time in that class, I did have somebody come up to me and say, never shared this with anybody, but here's my story. And just that, like, made me realize, like, for the longest time, I felt like I was alone, like I was the only one. And just that one time sharing it and having somebody share something back that they've never shared before made me recognize, like, I'm not alone in this. It was disheartening because then I realized it does happen a lot more often than we know, but it also was like, I'm not alone in this and other people do understand. And yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yes. Well, what would you suggest to the victims and survivors listening today that do want to share their story in public places? Because a lot of people don't. And, like we were just saying, like there's a lot of work to be done around considering if you want to step out into that public place or not. But what would you
Yeah.
advise to people who do want to go and do this type of work?
I definitely would say make sure you have your tribe around you, just like we were saying, like have those people that are gonna empower you and as well as just like listening to you and your body. Like if you're like, yeah, I want to do this, and then when push comes to shove, you're just not ready yet, like you don't need to do it if your body's saying like, yeah, I'm not ready. But I also think like if you do agree to share it, make sure you have that support. Make sure you're ready, and just know that as soon as you put it out there in the public, it is out there. But at the same time, like it's very empowering. And like we said before, you might have a couple of those bad apples that don't receive it in the way that you're hoping, but there's so many more good apples that are listening to your story and wanting to cheer you on and help you make change too.
Absolutely. I love that. And I would follow up with like really, really sit and think about why you want to share. What is your motivation for doing that? I know that was something I really sat and did a lot of writing with, and just going like, okay, what I'm being asked to do this thing. That's fine. But why do I say yes? Why do I say no? And looking at both those sides and coming to a conclusion with that.
Yeah.
I do think like, for all of us who are victims and survivors, there's so many ways to be involved in this work. And it might be through sharing your story, but there's just a myriad of ways to be able to engage with other victims and survivors. And I'm excited to collaborate with you with that secret project of ours on
Same.
just that. So as we wind down today, as I started out at the beginning saying, this is National Crime Victims' Rights Week is coming up. And in fact, this episode may air during that. Can you share with me what that means for you? What that week means for you?
Yeah. It means a lot for me just because I know it's the opportunity to spotlight victims and continue to make steps to making things better for victims. It makes me pretty hopeful that like that 1 week to spotlight that makes me hopeful for the future of victims, and just getting the opportunity to be a part of it. And even if it's a week long, I know that like our work is all year long, and that 1 week really spotlights like the work that we've done and continue to do. So means a lot.
Absolutely. And I think it's a week that, I mean, it's weird to be like, woohoo, it's Victims' Rights Week, but I do feel that way. Like it's a super special week. And to just kind of be like, to reflect back on the last year of what we've accomplished, to look forward to the future, and also just take some time to care for ourselves. To be like, this is heavy, hard stuff. So this is my week, and I'm going to take a little break, a little self-care, whatever it is.
Yes.
Well, it is always a delight to have you on here and to see you again. I'm excited to see you in person, hopefully soon. As you know, I like to close each show with a positive message to victims and survivors listening. So if you could share one parting thought to our listeners, what would it be?
It would be to use your voice however you want, little by little on big platforms, and just take back your power.
Love it. Keep taking it back. Well, thank you so much for being here, Taylor, and for all the work you're doing. I'm so excited to just continue to watch how you unfold and what you do with this world. Whether you stay in this lane or other lanes is just totally up to you, and I'm excited to follow along. So thank you. So that does it for us this week, my friends. If you want to learn more about National Crime Victims' Rights Week, you can go to the Vermont Center for Crime Victim Services page, website, and you could also check it out on the OVC website. So if you have any questions, I'd love to hear more from you. You can always contact me, Anna at standupresources.com. I'm your host for this bi-monthly week and show. Sorry there. Here on the MEND. So be well, stay strong, and thank you so much. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review or feedback. We love hearing new topic ideas from listeners and watchers as well. Thank you for listening to The MEND, and be well.